Good morning and welcome back. I am Corey Hugert, proprietor of Crock of Time, which is a website where I log all of my ferments, whether they go right or not, and a Discord where we get together, share our experiences, learn from each other, where we're making stuff at home, and you can too. So anyways, this is part 2 of the Koji Rice live stream. So in part 1, there's a link in the description. We prepared our rice by steaming it, and then we inoculated it with Koji mold spores, and then we set up and stuck it in our incubator in the basement. And 36 hours later, it is time to check on that Koji rice and see if we got the growth that we are looking for. Full disclosure, I made a mistake when I put the rice into the incubator. I made a single mistake, and that's okay. I think it's recoverable. It's a pretty versatile process, and the Koji mold, Aspergillus oryzae, it wants to grow, and if the conditions are even a little favorable. Sorry, that's my rice cooker, because I've got some rice prepared for us today to make some stuff with our Koji rice. But anyways, yeah. So before we go down and check on our Koji rice, let's take a look at what I've been up to for the past 36 hours, and switch to this other camera just so that I'm looking towards you. Okay. All right, so here we go. So 10 a.m. yesterday morning. This is 12 hours after after we initially put it into the incubator. So I like to, double check the temperature in a couple places. So I grabbed my little infrared thermometer there. So it says we're at 90 degrees, which is where I had things set. And I am just kind of making sure that ventilation hole is clear. Just kind of taking a peek. And I think that everything's okay, right? So did you catch the mistake? It was quick. So here, I'll give you another peek here. Did you see it? There it is. I left the thermometer. I left the probe in the water. Okay, so that means that the probe for the first almost 24 hours, actually, because I didn't notice it at 10 a.m., was just keeping the water at 90 degrees. So this is very similar, right, to a method that I used to use before I got the aquarium heater and the bubbler set up, right? So before that, I used my immersion circulator, right? So the immersion circulator, you don't really have much of a choice but to turn it on, set it to the temperature that you want the water to be at, and then it just goes, right? And that worked. But when I was doing that method, I was floating the tray in the water. Okay, so that kind of ensured that at least, the full contact of the tray, at least the tray itself was, probably the same temperature as the water, and therefore hopefully the rice was also being held at that temperature. In this setup, if you go back and check the replay, and we'll take a look once we go down there, I have mason jars sticking out of the water so that the tray is not in the water itself. So there's maybe a little bit of a temperature difference there. But all is not lost. I would estimate that our rice stayed within the mid-80s, which is honestly where I started growing Koji. I would set it to 86 degrees. Now I set it to 90, just a little bit higher. So with that out of the way, let's see what I was doing at 10 p.m. last night. So here's the 24 hours in, and I was checking the temperature. The temperature's risen just a little bit, but I also, you know, that vent hole kind of got covered up again. So I did remove the blanket there. This was, by the way, after I had found and fixed the temperature probe issue. So the probe is actually in the rice. I think here, yeah, I'm going to show you. There's the probe in the rice, and actually I need to adjust that so it's stuck back in there. Whatever. So at this stage, there is kind of a haze, right, on the rice, but not any real mold growth yet to speak of. So here I'm just making sure that that vent is open. I actually, you know, took the blanket almost halfway off at this point just to let it cool down to about 90. I did eventually move it back because the temperature was dropping and I didn't want it to drop. So there we go. 24 hours in. I didn't go to bed quite at that time. I was up for another couple of hours, so I checked on it again before I went to bed, and that's when I adjusted things. That's it. Now, I guess I could have done another check-in this morning, but I wanted to keep it at the 12-hour increments because the next 12-hour increment is now. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down and check it out and figure out what to do with it from there, and hope that we have the mold growth that we want. So, also, yeah, I apologize for the slight delay there. I was able to fix the delay for one camera, but not the other one. So it's like 3 seconds. I hope it's not too bad. So let me know if things are breaking up or the delay is super weird. Okay, so let's stick you on. Apologies, I seem to be having some trouble today. There we go. Sorry about that. And let's bring this with us. You can probably see the amount of delay from my laptop screen here. Okay. So, let me adjust this. Okay, here it is. So we've got the, the vent hole uncovered for the last 12 hours. We've still kept it at temperature, so the rice itself is at about 90 degrees. So it is time. Now you might think, well, actually, why don't we just take a look first? Let's see what we got. I should have kept this out so that I could give you a close-up. Here we go. And there it is, folks. The Koji Rice in all of its fuzzy glory. It could have been denser, I think, probably due to my, temperature screw up, but we still got it. It is well matted. Not that that's particularly, a requirement when they're doing sake brewing. They're not looking for matting. They're looking for very optimal growth around and inside of the rice grain itself. I don't know if you can even see that. Sorry. I'm trying to do the whole kind of split the rice grain open to look at the inside, and it's really hard for me to tell if there's much going on in there or not. But regardless, this is what my rice pretty much always looks like, and I am always happy with it. So now, what do we do from here? Yeah, Daniel, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I repeated what I had just said for about 3 seconds there when I switched the camera, but that's life. So yeah, anyways, here it is again, just in case you missed part Part 1, the aquarium heater with an aquarium bubbler setup, and the mason jars keeping this on a stable platform. And I explained yesterday that one of the reasons for that, instead of floating it, is because I can actually stack another tray in here, possibly 2, but I haven't tried 3 trays before. All right, anyways, so this is real drippy on the bottom. Let me just wipe this off. And now I can turn all this stuff off because we're done with that. You might have noticed that I have this nice little spigot on here, and actually right down here I have a drain in the floor. So I probably won't do it right now, but in a little bit I will use this hose. I will stick it on there and put the hose over there and drain the water out. You don't want to let this water sit here. It's been kept at a very optimal temperature for all sorts of things to grow inside. So make sure to get rid of that water. Okay, so at this point now, I want to halt the mold growth. So I have this lovely fridge down here with a nice larder sticker. This is my this is my larder fridge, as you can tell. All the pickles and lots of larder condiments even, and the beer. But anyways, here's where I'm gonna stick my rice. I leave it uncovered, and usually I will just let this sit here for a day, at which point it will have dried slightly. You'll see that it comes away from the sides a little bit, and that's usually when I end up using it. So it looks like today we might actually use it super fresh because I have all sorts of things planned for it. But I do have some koji from last time I made some, so we'll start there, and we'll go back down and grab some as we need. Okay, let me see if I can. Yep, there we go. Yes, the gate is not for children; it is for pets. to keep the pets out of the basement. All right, let's. So, what do y'all think? What do y'all think of that koji rice? It might have been a little bit hard to see from there, but that is what I expect just about every time, and it works out great for me. So, let me just check really quick. Daniel says that he also has a pickle fridge. Yes, it's kind of a requirement once you start in this process. Okay, so now what? Well, I actually have lined up for us a whole row of 6 different jars, and we can start putting in start a bunch of different ferments today. So let's do this. I need to maybe move some stuff here. I have, like I said, this is my koji rice from last time that I made koji rice. I always mark the date, of course, but also the amount. So this is 500 grams. Roughly, it's probably not like super exact. It might be off by a gram or 2, maybe 5. But we're not looking for super exact. And then I also have, so we mentioned it yesterday, I have this glutinous koji rice, which was a pain to deal with, and I do not recommend it, but I have it. So I'll probably end up using it today, where I grew koji on glutinous rice, which is very sticky. But I also, over here, I should actually open this up to try to let it cool a little bit. In my rice cooker, I have just prepared fresh a new batch of more glutinous rice. So for some of the things I'm doing today, I'm going to use more rice. And I decided to use glutinous rice. So we'll let that cool off over there. Alana says that baby gate won't work for her cat.
Yeah. One of our cats has still gotten down in the basement somehow, but for the most part, it keeps them out. So that's where I do all my experiments. Okay, so first
back to this. I know this camera stinks, but here we go. So we're gonna switch to back to the big screen to check out what we're gonna make today. So the first thing on my mind when I have just made a fresh batch of Koji Rice is that I want to, preserve it somehow. Now, obviously, this is my go-to. I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again where I present stuff where I'm just talking with the tiny little camera there. Hold on. So I am lucky enough to have one of these. This was a Christmas gift for, an avid fermenter and preserver. So I've accumulated things like this over the years, but I really love this Nesco vacuum sealer. It was actually difficult for my wife to find this at the time, so this is probably not in production anymore. Maybe there's a similar one, but there's also, any vacuum sealer will work, and I highly recommend one. That is my first line of defense to preserving the Koji rice. And then I store it in the freezer. If you store this in the fridge, it will start to break down and it will start going sour. You might be able to get away with keeping it in the fridge for like a week, but I just don't do it anymore because I've had Koji rice go sour and I don't really want to use it at that point. So, thank you, Jack. There's my wife. Okay. So, let us open this up. Figure out what to do with it here. So, the first thing that I usually do with a fresh batch of Koji is make some Shio Koji. So, let's check out Shio Koji. Shio Koji is very simple. You just need your Koji rice, and then you need water, and you need salt. No extra additives. This is just all Koji rice. We're not using it with some other substrate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try not to stay on the recipe screen all the time like I did yesterday. I actually set up some automation so that it comes back to the camera after 10 seconds if I've been idle. Okay, so here we go. I don't need this bowl really yet, so we'll set that right there. So I'm just going to use half of this. This is 500 grams, so I'll use 250 grams. And we'll go from there. So, you do not have to worry too much. I mean, your hands should be clean, but you don't have to worry about things being sterile at this point. So what we're going to be doing here, the whole point of this is that the rice will start breaking itself down. Well, the enzymes from the Koji mold will start breaking the rice down in the water. Get to 250-ish here. So yeah, so the enzymes will start breaking the rice itself down. There's a little bit of protein in there for that classic umami, but there's also tons of carbohydrates that create sugars. So when you put that in some water. By the way, I am using spring water from the store. I don't know why this is here. I'm not using my tap water, chlorinated water. In the past, what I've done, if I didn't have
you know, spring water. It doesn't need to be distilled, just, you know, water without additives. Here it is. I would pour the tap water into some open container and let it sit out for 24 hours. I have heard that allows some of the chlorine to evaporate. I don't actually know if that's legitimate or not, but that's what I used to do and it worked okay. All right, so I'm getting about 250 milliliters. You can go more or less. This isn't super prescriptive, but it's a starting point. The same with every single recipe that we're going to go over today. So we're going to start with, you know, 1 part water and 1 part Koji rice. Okay, now, so now we have 500 grams total of stuff in here. So if that's just gonna sit there, the rice will start breaking down into sugars, and just from my hands, just from, you know, the jar itself, there will be bacteria and yeasts that start to become active, right? So we need to control that, right? So the way that we're going to do that is with salt here. So I usually do 5% salt. You can go up to 10%. I think 10% is more traditional, maybe. So 10% of 500 would be 50, so 50 grams. If I want to use 5%, that's half of that, so that'll be 25 grams. So that's what I'm going to put in, is 25 grams of salt. I am using Morton canning and pickling salt. So this happens to be relatively local to Cleveland, and it also doesn't contain any additives or anti-caking agents. It is just salt, and it's, you know, it's a fine salt, so that it really quickly mixes in with, you know, room temperature water. You don't necessarily have to heat it up or anything like that. So here we go. This is our Shio Koji. It's simple as that. I'm going to stir this every day for a week. So I'm just going to, you know, keep this spoon, wash it off every day, and then come back in here, open it up, and give it a stir. And the other requirement, and, you know, this is not optional. The other requirement is that you taste this every day after you're finished stirring it, and you will be amazed. You will be amazed by how it changes just over the course of a week. And then from that point, you can stir it maybe once or twice a week. I like to let my Shio Koji go for a full month, usually. You don't have to let it go for that long, but that's generally what I'm doing. So I will put cap on this. We don't want super tightened cap, so I'm going to put it on and then I'm going to loosen it. There will be some carbon dioxide buildup if we tighten this. But yeah, so we're going to be stirring it every day, so we're not like putting an airlock on this or anything like that. The stirring helps move those enzymes around, and also, you know, keeps mold from growing until it gets nice and acidic. Okay, so there is number 1, Shio Koji. Okay, let's check out our next recipe. So next, we're actually going to do something that I haven't put together before, so I'm actually really excited to do this. I don't know why, I just haven't, but it's a very common thing that I see all the time. Shoyu Koji. So just like Shio Koji, right? We put Koji rice and water and salt. We're essentially going to be doing the same thing here. Here, I've done it again. Here we go. We're essentially going to be doing the same thing, except instead of water and salt, we're putting shoyu, right? Shoyu being soy sauce. So actually, let me get my own soy sauce. Oh, you can come with me. Here we go. I am going to use my own shoyu that I made a couple years ago, and I bottled it, whatever, in 2020. So this is a barley shoyu. So it was just made with soybeans, and instead of wheat, I toasted pearled barley, and it turned out okay. I'm still letting it kind of age, but today we might as well put it to use. Okay, so same thing. I'm gonna put the rest of this in here. Have any of y'all tried Shoyu Koji before? I see it all the time on Instagram. It seems, I don't know, it seems maybe a little redundant and over the top, but also, it seems kind of obvious too. So I'm not sure why I haven't tried it. So we've got 250 grams. There we go. Alana says that she has pickled egg yolk with it. Now you'll have to let me know how you're pickling. Are you putting the raw egg yolk into the Shoyu Koji, or are you curing the yolk first and then kind of marinating it in there? Let me know. Okay, and Daniel, yes, this is your chance. This is your excuse to make some Shoyu Koji with me. So I'm just gonna get this up to 500 grams. I honestly do not recall what the salt level was for my shoyu. I believe it was at least 15%, but it might have been closer to 17. So plenty of salt. Once we cut it in half, we're just below 10%, but we're still above the 5% salt that we used for the Shio Koji. So let's put this back here. All right. Plus I went a little over there, but again, it doesn't matter that much. It's just a starting point. So sorry, you cannot actually see what I'm doing here. So, mixing that up nice and thick. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir this once a day for a week with my Shio Koji and taste it, and I expect my mind to be blown. Here, I'm going to taste it now. Tastes like shoyu. I'm going to do this awash just because I don't want my saliva bacteria in here. Here, let's take a closer look at that. Sorry, I can't really zoom this, but there you go. So there's our Shoyu Koji. And this will also stay out on the counter. And loose. Loose lid. Okay, what is next? What is next? What do you think is next? Let's take a look. Oh, before we do that, sorry. Alana is saying yes and cover in the show you. I don't know what the yes refers to. Sorry. Did you let me know specifically if you cured it first? Because I think I asked the either or question, and I'm not sure what the yes refers to. So okay, so we've got a couple guesses here. Mirin, Amazake. Let's see what I've got next for us. And Daniel wins. it was Mirin. Oh, okay. And sorry, Alana says the raw yolk in the Shoyu Koji. So I'll have to try that out. She did not cure it first. Okay, so the next thing I have is Mirin. So another way to preserve something long term other than salt. Here we go. Another way to preserve something long term other than salt. Even with salt, we still are kind of battling with mold and having to stir every day and all that sort of stuff. Another way to battle it is with alcohol. So I actually have some. There we go. I showed it off a little bit yesterday, but here is my my first actually homemade Mirin from. This is actually two years old now. So it's got a nice dark yellow color. This was made with Koji rice, regular cooked rice, and I used Korean soju at a higher, I think it was 24%, and that actually worked just fine. I was a little bit concerned about the lower alcohol content. That logbook is on crockoftime.com if you want to check it out. Today I want to do something a little different, because there's no reason why you have to do everything, the traditional way, right? So let's go grab. So for this, we will need our cooked rice. So in addition to the Koji rice, we're adding additional rice for additional saccharification. So here we go. There it be. Let me grab. Ow. Let me set this here first. Sorry, I'm tossing you all over the place. Let me grab something to set that down on, because it's still hot. Okay. There we go. Move this. Alright, so here we have glutinous rice that I just cooked in my rice cooker. I could have steamed it, but I didn't. I just needed to quickly do this morning. So I found out that the measurements in here for cooking glutinous rice work out so that if I put 500 grams of glutinous rice in here, the water that I add is also roughly 500 grams. So I'm saying this because in my last post about this, the logbook about the glutinous rice koji, and this was about Amazake, but I think it makes sense to talk about here too, is that when you're just cooking rice, you're adding a lot of water to it. So when I make my Amazake, so during Koji-Con, I do some kind of koji bread every year because I'm also into sourdough, and for that I was doing an Amazake sourdough. And so when I made my Amazake, I was thinking like a baker, and I was using baker's percentages when I was making my Amazake, because then in the bread itself I wanted to know what the actual hydration level was. So setting that aside, basically when I make my Amazake, I'm just cooking rice however much I want to cook, and then I'm adding, I weigh it before and after cooking so that I know how much water was actually added, so that when I put the koji rice and the cooked rice together, I just subtract that amount of water, because I'm putting the koji rice and the cooked rice together in proportion 1-to-1 or so with the dry weight of the rice, and then I'm subtracting the water that goes into this from the water that I'm adding. So it ends up a really thick Amazake, but I just needed to do that for the bread. It's not necessarily a requirement. We're not gonna be that specific today, is what I'm trying to say. I just wanted to talk about it. So for Mirin, and if we go back to the recipe card here, generally speaking, you could do 1 part koji rice, 1 part cooked rice, and then 2 parts, right? Just the same amount as alcohol. But we can actually get away with adding more rice here because this is going to be a long-term ferment, at least a year, generally speaking, is what I will be doing with it. So, so what I'm going to do is open this glutinous rice koji. Again, you do not have to use glutinous rice koji at all, ever. I just have it because I made it, because I was experimenting. But I'm just going to use it, so it's going to be all glutinous rice in this mirin. Okay, so I'm going to go... Let's start with half of this, and we'll see how it goes. So 250 grams of the Koji rice. All right, 250 grams of Koji rice. I am going to do double that in cooked rice. I'm not worrying about the added water like I just went on a whole tangent about. Sorry about that. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Let me take this out because this is still hot. So what I'm going to do first is put the I'm going to put the hot rice in here. We can still work with this. So I'm going to do 500 grams of the hot glutinous rice. It's like not like super hot, but it's warm. Maybe I'm going to do 500 grams. That's... There we go. That should work out to about half of what I got in this, since everything I put in was measured. Okay, 500 grams is in. Now, I'll leave this here. Now we're going to put in our alcohol to cool this down for the addition of the koji rice, because we don't want to destroy the enzymes. And Daniel is asking, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but he's asking, does heat matter with mirin? So still just needs to stay under 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, absolutely, right? Anytime we're working with these enzymes, we want to stay at or below 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Generally speaking, there's some, there's some wiggle room and some other things. But yeah, so I don't, of course I left my thermometer downstairs, but that's okay. Be right back here. Okay, so traditionally we might use something like this. Daniel, I'm sorry I didn't see your comment until after the stream ended. So I was drinking just a little bit of this at the end of yesterday's stream while the audio was terribly out of sync with the video. Let me know, by the way, if my audio is synchronized, because I have no idea. So this is Japanese shochu. It's the only Japanese shochu that I have seen so far that I could buy locally. So I bought it on the spot. But it's only 20% alcohol, so it's nice for sipping, but it's not so great for this application. I did use a 20% alcohol in my first mirin, and it did work. But today I want to try something different anyways. So today I'm going to be using this. This is Scotch. It is a very peaty Scotch, actually, and I find it kind of hard to drink by itself because it's so smoky. But it's still a nice Scotch. But since I'm not really drinking it, I want to use it for something. So I want to make Scotch mirin. So that's what I'm doing today. We're doing Scotch mirin. So the first thing I'm going to do, I hope it's going to fit in here. I might have to get a bigger jar. but we'll eyeball this for now. Thank you, Alana, for letting me know that the audio is synced. I always worry about that. Okay, so I'm going to start with putting 500 grams of the scotch in here, but we're going to need at least the same amount of all of the koji and rice combined. So let's see how much is going to fit in here. Oh, definitely not enough. I've only got 300 grams in there so far. Did not prepare another large jar. Let's see what I got down here. How about that? Will that work? Here's hoping. So I am at, what did I say, roughly 300? 311, okay. I'm gonna have to, pour this in here. Sorry about this, folks. I did not prepare the right size jar. Okay, that's about right. 300. Come on, get out of there. Alright. I don't actually know if I have enough scotch for this amount. So we're at 300. I'll need to get 200 more in there. Okay, so that's 100. I'm going to top it off with this shochu. I'm just a rebel today. And actually, we're going to need more of this because we got to put in our Koji rice now. After I mix this up and hopefully it's cooled off a bit. Hello, Katerina. Nice to see ya. Katerina is saying that there's an alcohol called Rakija fruit spirits. It sounds like maybe it's like a, in my experience, a what do you call it? Brandy, distilled fruit wine, maybe. Alcohol content is normally 40%. Yeah, so that's generally what I'm looking for, is a 40% alcohol to make mirin with. But lower does work. You just got to be careful with it. Okay, I'm gonna grab my other thermometer just to make sure that I'm pretty sure that we're gonna be just fine, but you know. Oh yeah, that's under 100 degrees now, so we're good. Okay, adding the Koji rice, which again was 250 grams. I need to mess with things with this recipe, folks. It's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good. Because yeah, since I'm adding this shochu in after the fact, it's gonna lower that total alcohol percentage, but I'm sorry, I don't know offhand exactly like what sort of total ABV you should shoot for. You could do the calculation. I think I did one in my Mirin post, trying to calculate what the ABV was after I added everything in. So if we're doing a half and half by weight, even though ABV is alcohol by volume, since we're doing half and half by weight, you can kind of say, okay, if you put 40% alcohol in and then cut it with the rice by half, then you've got a 20%. So that's still plenty. I think you want to be over 10%, probably 12%, I think. I don't know, don't quote me on that. All right, we're just gonna fill this right up. Okay, so there we go. That will be our Scotch Mirin, and fits perfectly in this jar. I am actually going to, so I'm going to stir this, and I'm going to seal it. It should not be fermenting. If it starts expanding, it means that the alcohol content was not high enough, and you've got something in there making carbon dioxide. So at that point, maybe you'll get vinegar. I don't know. So I'm just going to give this a stir, close this up, and set it somewhere for a year. And then I might mix it up a couple times, but it's not important to... It's not as important as it is with the Shio Kojis and Shoyu Kojis to stir this daily, because that alcohol is not going to let anything grow in there. So it's just going to allow the enzymes to do their thing unburdened by anything else. So there we go. There's our Scotch Mirin. I'm excited for that one. Okay. Daniel is saying the higher the ABV, the better it ages. I would say 9 to 10% is a good lower limit. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but I haven't tested that. You know what I mean? So, so there is our. That will generally, you know, it will generally separate like that. So you'll eventually get a clear liquid at the top. You can definitely stir it up occasionally. It'll settle. So, all right. Whoops. Put this on. What's next? So we've done our Mirin. Next is Amazake. So, Alana, you were almost right. So for Amazake, we are going to do this. 1 part Koji rice, 1 part cooked rice. You know, roughly, this is a starting point again, and then again 2 parts water. So watered down, you know, half rice and Koji rice and half water. The important point about Amazake is that we're going to keep it at 140 degrees Fahrenheit for roughly 6 to 12 hours, okay? This is because at that temperature, thank you, automation. At that temperature is where the amylase enzymes are optimal, right? They're going to be the most active at that temperature. So we're going to take advantage of that and make a super sweet liquid out of just rice in less than a day. Whereas something like this is going to take probably at least 6 months to get to the same like sweetness level. Probably, that's my guess. So let's do that. I already have my sous vide set up over here. It is already set to 140. There was discussion in the KojiCon Slack about the optimal temperature actually being, you know, down a couple degrees, 138, 135. I don't worry about it. I just set it at 140 and let it go. 140 is where, you know, we're not going to get any bacterial activity, and that's kind of the point of this. So, Giga Davy is asking, I have seen very dark Mirin. Is there a traditional color that it should take? I am definitely not the person to ask about traditional stuff, that's for sure. I have never had Han Mirin or True Mirin before I made it myself at home, because it's just not available here, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. So mine turned out like this color. This is what most of the, you know, fake Mirin that I see at the store is trying to emulate this color. I have seen somebody's homemade Mirin almost a brown color, almost like a Shoyu color. I don't know how they got it that dark, other than maybe a lower alcohol percentage, potentially, I don't know, and you know, keeping it in the sun, maybe that would help. So there you go. Daniel is saying that from his experiences of range, you can use for optimal enzymatic conversion from 120 to 156 degrees Fahrenheit. So somewhere in that range is where a couple of different enzymes have their optimal temperatures. It's, I want to say, lower for something. I can't remember if it was protease or amylase. Slightly lower, or some of them, because protease or amylase is a kind of a blanket term for a lot of different enzymes. But anyways, all right, let's do this. I'm going to use all the rest of this Koji Rice here. Again, now we're making the Amazake. So I suppose maybe, I don't know where the traditions originate or what the original methods were. But there are recipes in Koji Alchemy for a sour Amazake. And off the top of my head, I believe that it's just kind of kept at room temperature like this. That as a home fermenter, that kind of scares me. I'll have to look back at it and see if that's what it actually said, but I'm going to do it the quick way in less than a day, so. Alright, and again, I've measured that out before putting the hot rice in. Let's see what temperature this rice is before I go out of my way to dump everything out again. Okay, 110, 115, we're good. Alright, I'm just making sure that it wasn't over 140. It has had time to cool. Alright, so here we go. We're going to put 250. I might, depending on how much is going to fit in here, I might try to put more, but and again, I'm not doing the crazy weird math that I was talking about earlier. I'm sorry that I brought it up. I often find that I just kind of sometimes need to talk about sourdough. It's just something that I really enjoy, so. Okay, so there's 250. You think the water is gonna fit? Let's find out. We will find out. And again, I'm going to use spring water for this. I can always split this into 2 jars. I should have thought of that ahead of time, huh? Oh, let's see here. Of course, I don't have another one like that. All right, let's see how much water we can fit in here. Potentially about half of it. Maybe a little bit more. So yeah, I'm not going to be beholden to that recipe. I fit 400 out of 500 grams. That's fine. That's what we're going with. All right, we'll try to give this a mix in here. A lot of times when I am making this, I will put the Koji rice into a food processor first to kind of increase the surface area, help break it up a bit. But you don't have to, so I'm not going to today. Oh man, we got 2 more things to make, and it's all our hour is almost up, so I better speed this up a little bit, huh? All right, so that's good enough for now. Mix that up. Put again a lid. We're going to put it loosely. Loose lid, just in case. And we're going to stick this in our sous vide. If you have some other method to keep something at that temperature, by all means. I probably need to add some more water in there. I'll handle that later. So that's going to stay in there for probably about 10 hours. When you're doing this sort of stuff, I highly recommend, I don't know where I put my phone, but setting an alarm for 10 hours later. I'm going to grab it and do that, actually. Okay, timer, 10 hours. There we go. My timer is counting down. Same thing for, by the way, the actual incubating of the Koji rice. Set your alarms ahead of time so that you get you remember your check-ins at 12, 24, and then 36 hours. I have made that mistake before and accidentally forgot about it, so learn from my mistake. So let's see here. Okay, so Anja is saying that they did a Mirin without alcohol, getting quite dark right now at 14 months. I just always assumed that Mirin was part of Mirin was using alcohol in some fashion. I think, but I don't know. I think that there is a tradition of Mirin that goes that uses either sake or sake lees to start that process instead of distilled alcohol. But I have to look into that more and see how that actually works, because I'd love to have another use for my sake lees. So, okay, what's next? What is next? There's our Amazake. You don't have time to guess because we're running out of time. So we're gonna try to do some really quick. We're gonna do some really quick miso. So I have over here. I soaked overnight and then cooked in my pressure cooker this morning some soybeans. These are black soybeans, but basically soaked them overnight. I put them in the steamer basket with 4 cups of water underneath, and then I so I set it to high pressure. I set to high pressure for 15 minutes, and then I just let it naturally release. It took about half hour, 45 minutes or so. So we're going to try quickly making some... Oh, and you know what? I am now out of Koji rice, so we're going to have to go get that from the basement. So let's run and grab that. I hope you don't mind that this stream is going a little over time. But I do want to highlight the other thing that Koji is really good at. So not just making things sweet, but also making things super umami savory. So we get a little bit of that with rice. There are some proteins in there that turn into those delicious amino acids. But we can put that into overdrive with some soybeans, which are very high in protein relative to pretty much any other bean. So let's see, how much is actually going to fit in this? Let's just be conservative for now. And let's just do, so, okay. So we're doing, the first thing we're doing is Shiro Miso. Shiro Miso meaning white miso, otherwise known as, you know, I don't know what it's otherwise known as, but it's a short fermented miso. So aged not very long, maybe like 3 months, 6 months max, but I think you're getting into yellow miso territory there. So what I have here also, if I need it, is some of that liquid out of the Instant Pot from cooking the beans. Probably, I don't know, we'll see. So I'm just gonna do, again, if we check out our recipe, equal parts. So the increased amount of koji relative to the beans is part of what is making it sweeter, and the other part is that it's just not fermented quite as long. So do I have like a, where did my rice paddle? I just had it. There it is. There it is. Let's see if I can scoop these out here. Nope. Okay. So I'm just going to do 250 grams. Oops, and get some on the floor. This is approximately a kilogram after it's been cooked. It started out as 400 grams dry, and after cooking it's about 950 or so. Okay, a little bit too much. I should have taken it out of the steamer basket. There we go. Most of it. These have had some time to cool, thankfully, other than the rice, which came right out. Okay, so I've got 250 grams or so of the beans here. And again, so I have a meat grinder attachment for my KitchenAid because I do a lot of baking and stuff like that. So I've got a KitchenAid. We got it for a wedding shower many years ago. So again, another gift, but I'm not going to use that today. We're just going to mash it up. So, oops, I hope I didn't touch anything there. There we go. I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way with our hands. So there's some discussion about these are not just regular soybeans, these are black soybeans. Alana has been working with those a little bit, and there was a question about the flavor, and in Alana's experience, they get more of a doshu kind of flavor. But I have yet to see, so I just had these on hand because I wanted to do something with them, and so I've decided to use them. Okay, so I'm not going to get super fine mash here, and that's okay for now. What we're going to do is put the rice in. Maybe I should have measured that all out first before getting my hands all dirty, but you know how it is. Okay, we're gonna put the same amount of rice in. Oh, this is a chance to actually show you how it turned out. So, move this over. So here we go. So, not as good of a matting as I had hoped for this time around, but it's not too shabby. Yeah, not too shabby at all. It'll still work. Even if your rice is not super optimal, it will still work. All right, 250 grams of, actually it's much nicer, not at the corner. This was probably the corner with the vent, so, there's a little bit of a difference there, but yeah, there we go. That's the matting that I'm usually used to seeing. It's funny, we're making white miso, but I've decided to use dark colored soybeans. That's what you can do if you're making your own. You can do it how you want. Okay, so here we go. Get some extra rice here. mash that up together. Now this is going to be a bit dry, which is why I kept the soaking liquid. I'm just going to get this rice nice and separated out. Again, you can put the rice into a food processor to, you know, blend it up a little bit. Okay, so we have, and I'm not gonna adjust it. Oh yeah, I'll adjust it now actually, because we need to, very importantly, we need to add salt as well. Did I have that in the recipe? I hope I did. Yeah, 5 to 10% salt. I'll probably do, I don't know, I'll probably do 10%, maybe, I don't know. No, I'll do 5%. I need to adjust the, this would have been better if the beans were more mashed up, honestly, but what are you gonna do, right? Sometimes it's better to just use your hands. Okay, so now, before I add any water or anything like that, I'm just checking the consistency by taking some loosely in my hand and squeezing it. I'm sure that y'all watching live right now probably already know this. So it holds together, but it is still a bit dry, so I'm going to add just a touch of water. I'm going to measure how much water I'm adding. Water, cooking liquid. Alright, so we've added about 50 grams cooking liquid. That takes the total up to 550 grams. That's important for our salt calculation. Okay, that's a little more like it. I don't know, how do I describe how wet you want it? I don't know if anyone's got any pointers, because, you know, even though I could do this before, it was actually still a little too dry, if you ask me. So we have a question. All right, hang on. Let me wash my hands off. Okay. The question is, do you always need to cook the beans, or can you also use mashed raw soaked beans? Again, I'm not like a food expert, you know what I mean? But I am pretty sure that soybeans and most beans, when raw, can be toxic. So I wouldn't recommend eating raw beans. There might be some exceptions, but also, yeah. So what Daniel's saying here. So it's about whether the proteins are in a state to be worked on. Generally, you want them cooked, and kind of, I guess maybe that denatures them slightly. But yeah, that's, I wouldn't do raw beans, but that's just me. Okay, so let's add salt to this. Again, I'm going to do 5%. I might change my mind at some point, but so that is roughly 25-ish. We've added another 50 grams, so, you know, maybe we'll just do 30 grams and just leave it at that. So somewhere in the middle. Okay, mash this up. the Shiro Miso is a bit harder to work with because it is half rice, so it is going to be kind of crumbly regardless. I still might add just a little bit more liquid though. If it gets too liquidy, then so another important part of this process once we put it in the jar is that we need to put a weight on top of it, so that because it's a solid state fermentation and there will be bacteria and yeasts that are creating carbon dioxide, it will start pushing it up because there's the air pockets have no place to go. It's a lot harder for them to escape. All right, we're gonna add a little bit more, and I'm not measuring it. For the first time, folks, not measuring it. I did put a little extra salt in there, so it should be good. Alright, mainly what I'm looking for is now I'm not seeing any like little rice kernels just kind of scattered around. It looks like it's mostly a mixture that is all sticking together. Okay, so now that we have this, I always forget this part, and I probably should have put it in the recipe. But it's not a bad idea to add some mature miso into your fresh miso to inoculate it with all the good stuff, bacteria and yeast and stuff like that. What do I have up here? Okay, I could use some of this. So I have this really fancy stuff from my friends at Shared Culture. This is what they're calling a modern miso, and it is made with black beans. I don't know if those are black beans or black soybeans, but black beans nonetheless. Koji rice, and then cordyceps mushrooms and salt. So that seems like actually it'll go pretty well. Not that it's going to add necessarily a ton of flavor. We're just kind of using it to kickstart this process. I have no idea. I'm kind of looking. Oh, here we go. Made with live active cultures, perishable, keep refrigerated. So important. Don't use what do you call it? Pasteurized miso. I don't even know if they sell pasteurized miso, but I'm sure they do. I'm just going to use a little spoonful of it, really. We don't really need much. There we go. There's our Shiro Miso. Our black bean Shiro Miso. All put together. And now we're going to put it in the jar and see if I can't get some weights in there. Okay, like this with everything. So, I'm just kind of looking at how much I have here. I always recommend when it comes to miso that the jar that you put it in should probably be roughly double the size that you want. Double the size of the miso roughly, or you need to have headspace in order to put weights. This is a little bit more than half probably, but I'm gonna put it in there. We'll see how it goes. So traditionally this process looks a little something like this. You ball up some miso, and if you have a container that has a wider opening, this is a bit easier, but we toss it in hard enough for it to flatten, and that's attempting to force the air out in between miso balls. All right, not bad so far. There's a really great video from Shared Cultures on Instagram of Kevin and I guess another friend of theirs helping do the miso, or repacking it, I think. And they're just, double-handed, just taking turns slamming the miso down. Yeah, see, this is a lot easier with a wider rimmed jar, or crock, if you will. But this is easier to see, so that's what I'm going with. I just like to turn it after I throw it, like roughly 45 degrees each time, so that I'm... see, making a mess here. It helps if you're doing the small batches, it helps to also have a tamper for like sauerkraut, which I'll get out in a moment after I get all this in. Oh my gosh, I'm just making a mess, so we're just gonna very gently toss the rest of this in, and we're gonna tamp it down. Okay. Oh boy, look at all this. I will clean it up, I swear. Okay. Here is my tamper, so that's what I'm going to use to smoosh this down very well. Apologies. My camera battery died because we've gone over. So we'll just have to finish the stream like this. Okay. Good enough for now. Okay, I got to wipe away all this kind of excess stuff. I like to do that with some soju, just to help kind of sterilize the environment a little bit. Yes, I like my tamper too, thank you. It's just, I don't even remember where I got it, but I probably got it as a gift, so... I have two. I don't need two, but I have two. Because they were both gifts. Okay, so we've cleaned, roughly, we've cleaned away all of the excess stuff on the jar, because now we're going to try to put some weights on top. Usually I will put a piece of plastic wrap in here. So put a piece of plastic on top. This is always a pain in the butt. Because, you know, it's plastic wrap and it's never the right, you know, size that I need. Where are my scissors going? Stay there. Okay, and then I will attempt to get this in here. Is plastic wrap required? No, it's not. Jeremy does it this way, so I end up doing it that way too, because he's who I learned from. It helped just protect the surface a little bit from mold growth. I should have, before I did that, I should have put some salt on top. I gotta take this out now. Yes, one final thing before you do that. Sprinkle a little bit of salt on top. I use kosher salt for this because I can just dump some in like this, kind of twirl it around, and dump out the excess. And that is well. Oops, I'm pointing at the wrong camera now. That is, you know, well covered by the salt.
You want added protection on top from mold growth. So that's what that's for. It will also help draw out the tamari as well. In these tiny batches, I don't usually really get much tamari worth writing home about, but if you keep adding some salt on top, if you get some tamari, pour it off, and then add some more salt on top, you'll get more tamari because it will draw out the liquid. But then you start having a drier miso. Okay, that's good enough. I have some glass weights here. That's all I got really that it's going to fit in here, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll put the glass weight on top and put another one on top for good measure, because you generally want at least half the weight of the miso on top, at least, roughly. That'll do okay. And last but not least, you can cover it. We don't need to, you can absolutely, if you're using a mason jar, just, again, use a loose lid, a loose one, right? And that's generally going to stop anything from crawling in there. But just in case, if you prefer, you can use some kind of fine cheesecloth, or maybe even simpler. Excuse me while I step away. It's even simpler if you have coffee. What do you call it? There you go. So we can put a rubber band around that. Coffee filter. That's the word I was looking for. Huh. And there we go. Miso. Shiro Miso, aged 3 to 6 months roughly, and that'll be good to use. Some questions here. So, Giga Davey said they find that the plastic wrap helps a lot. They have one miso that stopped growing any mold on top after they substituted oven paper with plastic wrap. So yeah, you could put like wax paper or something like that, even parchment paper, I guess, over top. But plastic wrap works too. It's just plastic, so that's the one downside. Some people vacuum seal their misos. That's a way to do it. I've always been told that oxygen is kind of part of the process for good miso. I think that's, there's kind of a continuous cycle of different bacteria, yeast, acetobacter, etc. in there that, alternatively need oxygen and no oxygen. So, they kind of work hand in hand there. Yeah, Alana. It definitely happens. The miso gets mold on it almost no matter what you do. I've been having a lot more luck recently with not getting a lot of mold on my longer aged misos. I think putting a lot of salt on top certainly helps. But also just remembering to check in on it, maybe monthly or so. Once you start seeing a little bit of mold growth, it's probably not going to kill you. Don't take me to court over that, but scrape it off. You can add additional salt if you want, if you're worried about it, and repack it. More salt on top, put another cover over top of it. It's part of the process. Mold is you just kind of have to get over. Yeah, I mean, we're already working with mold, right? We're just trying to avoid the wild mold. So, yeah. Okay, let's see here. And since it's a solid state ferment, when you have mold growth on top, it's, in my opinion, less of a concern than when you have mold growth on liquid ferment, right? Because if you get mold growth on a liquid ferment, all the enzymes and toxins that those molds are producing are just spreading out in that liquid, right? With miso, it takes a lot longer stuff to move around in there. So if you catch it early, scoop it off, mix it up, it'll be good. The last thing I wanted to go over is we're not gonna do it right now because it's pretty much the same exact thing, right? So Aka Miso, aka red miso, is just a long-aged miso, and generally speaking, the ratios look a little bit different for a long-aged miso. You're using more of the protein source than Koji rice. Generally 1 part Koji to 2 parts to 2 parts soybeans or other beans. Let me just fix that. 2 parts. And then 10 to 20% salt. So much higher percentage of salt to keep it for that long of period of time. So that's it. It's the same thing that we did here. We're just slightly different ratios. And honestly, when I do, misos that are going to age for a year or more, I usually do a much larger batch of that so that I have, a lot, and I can actually get a little bit of tamari out of it, and I can, be more mindful about the mold and checking in on it and that sort of thing. So, anyways, that if I attempt to move all this stuff out of the way, I was gonna use the camera for this part to show what we did, but since the camera ran out of there we go. We've got Shio Koji, we've got Shoyu Koji, we've got Mirin, Scotch Mirin, and we've got a young miso. I'm going to put together a 1 to 2 year miso, probably from some of the rest of these beans. And then over here, finally, we have our Amazake going. In about 10 hours, that'll be done. I need to add a little bit more water to that so that it comes up a little further. And there is our Koji rice that we made on the last stream and over the last 36 hours. It is not super optimal or anything like that for, optimized for certain things like sweet or savory applications. It is just homegrown Koji, and honestly, that's where you need to start, right? If you haven't grown Koji before, if you've had trouble with Koji rice, just get the process down for growing it and growing it well. Figure out what your setup looks like so that it works every time with minimal effort on your part. And then from there, you can tweak your setup, right? You can add things to it. You can start to automate things if you're so inclined. Otherwise, checking in at those 12-hour marks generally works for me a little bit. I do sometimes do a little bit of checking after the 24 just to make sure that whatever I changed at the 24-hour point is still okay and it's not overheating before I go to bed. But yeah, you can you can add a humidity controller if you want. It might not work for a water bath. You might have to use another method for adding humidity if you're going to try to do humidity control. You can work on increasing the temperature during the final phase to get a different optimal enzyme production. All these sorts of things you can look into after you've got good Koji rice down pat. But it is simple. It's as simple as what I've done. I know that I've gathered some equipment and stuff over the years to make it a little bit easier, but I found that this works every time, even if I mess it up. But give it a try, and I want to see your successes. If you've been having trouble with Koji rice and you try something and it's because of this stream, just tag me, Crock of Time, on any of the social media accounts. I'd love to see it. Okay, so we're gonna do just a quick check of the comments here. have you ever tried to add koji to vegan nut cheeses? Well, I haven't made any vegan nut cheeses, but I am very, very excited to try something that could be considered a vegan cheese. So at KojiCon, Pao presented Tofuru, her version of Tofuru, which is tofu that is brined with koji, sometimes with rice koji, sometimes with soy koji, sometimes with both, and that supposedly ends up tasting like a cheese. So I've bought some tofu. I'm going to do that today. Actually, I'm going to do that today because I have fresh koji rice. I have fresh beans. It's not koji beans, but I'm just going to throw some in anyways. So I'm really excited to try that out. So look forward to that logbook sometime soon. Daniel has made cashew cheese with koji. So I don't know if you've got some kind of write-up of that or whatever. Make sure that you throw that into the Discord so we can check it out. Oh, my microphone is crackling. I don't know if I can do anything about that. Well, we're pretty much ending the stream now, so I'm sorry for my microphone. There's always something, right? So check out crockoftime.com. Check out the Discord. Come hang out with us, and we'll see you next time, folks. Thanks for hanging out, and I hope that you learned something. Take care. See you next time.